Your email revenue should be 30% of your overall revenue.
Do you have a specific service provider that you would recommend? Let's say I'm like a small business and I don't have any of that set up right now. Do you have a recommendation on where I would start?
I think Active Campaign and Constant Contact are great options for service providers, and Klaviyo is a really, really good option for e-com.
What can they do to elevate their presence online using email marketing and SMS marketing?
So part of your foundational flows is your welcome flow, post-purchase, your browse abandon, your add to cart, and then you want your checkout abandon. You want a win-back flow set up, a sunset flow. So those are the ones that you want to look at first.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by FireUsMarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode where we are joined by Brittney Trahan. Brittney is the co-founder of Strategy Maven Agency. She brings over 11 years of experience in the marketing space with a specialization in email and SMS marketing. In October 2020, she co-established SMA, a full-service email and SMS agency committed to delivering unique strategies that build community, drive revenue, and retain loyal customers. Welcome to the show, Brittney.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, Eli. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it too. So your specific skill for your agency, I haven't had somebody on, and it's an area that I want to learn a lot about. So this is great for me and hopefully great for the listeners as well. Okay, so let's dive into this. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? What did you want to be when you were little? Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, dig deep.
Yeah.
So I'm from the New Orleans area, pretty much born and raised here. Still live here. Growing up, I think I wanted to be a veterinarian or marine biologist. I feel like it's such like a common thing.
Yeah.
My age were interested in growing up. So yeah, very far from that in the role I'm in today. But I started working at like 16, very much had been in survival mode, which taught me so much. I definitely utilize all that for today and dealing with different people, different opportunities, managing a team, being in different industries throughout my working career. I'm able to pull from all of that to do what I do today. So it's been good. It's been a good journey, and it's been helpful experience for sure.
So if you look back, hindsight's always 2020, and you look back and you see those pivot points where like, if I wouldn't have made that decision and go that way, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Tell us about some of those maybe decision points that got you into the digital space and made you who you are today.
Yeah, being a millennial, I feel like I'm really fortunate because I feel like I was able to experience like pre-internet days, or like at least before it really got popular as it is today, of course. And then like this huge ramp up that has happened over the last 15, 20 years. So I say all that to say, like, as I was going through my college phase and everything, this freelancing world really started to become popular. And through my working career, I was in corporate America for a really long time and quickly learned my limitations there. I had met some people in the digital space, presented the opportunity to work for an agency and get some experience. I don't want to say it was the best experience I ever had. However, I learned a ton, and I am really grateful for that. So I was able to learn about so many different facets. So I was able to learn a little bit about ads, a lot about email, social, SEO, which really helped me learn where my skill set was and where my strengths were. And I was able to kind of niche down and focus on exactly what it is I wanted to do there. So if I wouldn't have made the decision to search out freelancing and recognize where my limitations were in the workforce, I would never have made this move. And in entrepreneurship and freelancing, you've got to be like willing to take those risks because you're just unsure, especially then. I didn't know anybody else who was in it. So it was really like me experiencing it for the first time. So it was very new to me. But yeah, super grateful. I have learned so much in such a quick time frame and have a ton of experience now, which is amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah. So in the agency, did you go in like learning everything, or did they put you in a specific spot and you had to like bounce around until you niched down to what you really liked?
I went in learning everything. I had to wear multiple hats. It was really small agency. There was only 3 of us on the team. the marketing team. So we
Yeah.
literally did all things, um, which wasn't terrible. Like I said, I was able to learn really quickly what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy and what I was really
Mhm.
good at. Um, and that's kind of what I took away from it. What I love about email is that email is such a good balance of creative and data strategy. It's
Mm.
the perfect mix and it's measurable. So it's even better because organic social, I really admire people who are in organic social and creative because to me, it seems very hard to track certain things on organic social and it's very
Mhm.
tedious work. So is email, but it's something I'm willing to invest that work into because I love being able to figure out the problems involved in the back end and see the results and measure the results and things like that.
Yeah, I went to lunch with a group of digital people the other day, and I heard somebody say the organic social is a dark funnel where it's like it's needed, but it's so hard to track like the very specifics of like, hey, I posted that and I got this sale. Where you're saying in email, and probably the same for SMS, you send an email, you know exactly if they clicked on it, came to the website, and if tracking is set up correctly, you know all the way through the success of that one email. Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly right. And all of
Yeah.
digital changes and evolves really quickly these days and happens often. Even in
Mhm.
an email and SMS world, there's lots of privacy policies changing. AI is coming into things, I'm sure we'll talk about later. But
Mhm.
with social, these trends and things that they have to stay on top of, we stay on top of trends as well, but we don't, are the trends that we have to stay on top of are not as in high demand as social output. So
Yeah.
again, I admire those people. I've done it before. It's definitely not something I could do full time for sure. Definitely
Yeah.
enjoy the email and SMS sector.
Do you feel like as a kid, were there any experiences that maybe gave you the creativity needed to be successful in your current career right now?
It's a really good question. I would say not necessarily on the creative side, but I feel just being able to sit back and observe and listen to people, I think is
Mhm.
what I use most in my current position. Not only being able to like very effectively communicate with business owners, because it's so important in the agency space, I'm sure as you've experienced too, is
Mhm.
that the business owner feels very heard in what they want to portray, their goals, things like that. So I feel like that is probably the most important skill that I utilize now is just really, it's so simple, but just observing and listening and then being able to translate that information to my team, into the strategy, etc.
Yeah, it's great point. And I do hear that, and I feel it from the owners all the time. Like if they aren't heard or felt or incorporated in some way, then it usually goes south pretty fast. So it's a great point. So at the agency, did you do the marketing for the agency, or did you bring on clients and work with them as well?
Mainly worked with the clients, but also for the agency, not as much. We've mainly focused on client work and things like that. So yeah, just bringing on
Mhm.
the clients, onboarding, and then anything needed. That I did a lot of writing for executives. That
Mhm.
was a big role that I played, as well as executing on the social platforms for certain clients and things like that, and the emails as well.
So when you wrote for them, did you like for LinkedIn posts, for emails, all the above?
All of the above. A lot of LinkedIn articles for executives to these bigger corporations and things like that.
Mhm.
They need content set out because they're positioning themselves as thought leaders. So all of that content that came from me.
Did you find that that kind of content converted, or it just helped build trust in the company?
I think mostly it helped build trust in the company and it helped build community. So building trust in that people see
Mhm.
this content, they relate to it, they're able to comment on it, and then that business owner is able to, or the executive, the C-suite position is able to come in and comment and start conversations, which
Mhm.
I would have hoped brought in leads from that, but mostly I think it built a lot of trust.
Yeah, I've done some interviews with some agency owners in the past, and they've that was one of their big takeaways was if you're an owner or a founder or a leader, a CEO or whatever, and you're not posting and being visible and kind of walking through your journey, the reputation of the company is just quite not quite as strong. In fact, they mentioned that they specifically go to one specific supplement company because they follow the owner, and it's not like, hey, the ingredients are the best ever, but he trusts the owner based on what the owner posts online.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's something specifically for 2024 that me and my business owner are focusing on because it's so not everyone has as easy of a time talking about themselves. It's just not something that comes really natural to us. So we've always like had our head down, done a lot of work through referrals. But this year we're like really need to start like putting ourselves out there more just so that people can get to know us more and get to know our business more. And that's definitely something we're focusing on for that reason, just so that people can get to know everyone who works on the team, get to know us a little bit better, how we work. And you do that by doing exactly what you just said.
Yeah, it's very, very smart. I think it's a good approach, and hopefully this podcast helps you a little bit in that and gives you a little more visibility. Tell me what you're working on now. What are you passionate about? What are your goals for 2024? Anything super exciting that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so always building the team, of course, working on evolving our team, bettering the team. Um, I love doing that. I love working on all the reporting for the clients and seeing the results come in. That's super exciting. But aside from that, we're working on some educational pieces this year. I know you and
Mhm.
I kind of briefly talked about
Yeah.
that whenever we were discussing the podcast. So that's something I'm really excited about. We've been doing lots of like research in the market, talking to a lot of people about where the gaps are, certain guides to come up with. There's so much about email, even though email and SMS has been around for a long time. There's still a lot that people don't understand about it or how it works with other channels.
Mhm.
So I'm super excited to like get in the nitty gritty and start building out those ebooks or whatever it is that's going to help offer that value. So
Mhm.
yeah, super excited about that.
Do you take that approach with your clients right now, and that's why you kind of see that need as they're like, "Hey, this is great that you're doing it, but I need to understand a little bit more about why you're doing it and what you're doing." Is that where that came
Yes.
from?
Yeah, so some of our clients that come on board are a little familiar based on either like past agencies that they've worked with because
Mhm.
they've gotten involved or maybe some of their background. And then we have clients that don't know anything about it. And we've created docs explaining like, okay, these are the segments. This is why we use these segments. This is so we want them to know exactly what we're doing so they understand the work going into these strategies and these results because it just helps us more too because they feel more comfortable with knowing,
Yeah.
okay, I can trust that this is what's going on. This is what the plan is. So yeah.
The education piece is an interesting one. I did an interview last week with a guy who works at a college, and he's over there digital marketing space, and he's set like the whole curriculum. A really, really awesome interview, but it's interesting. He was kind of describing like the majority of his students are younger and they've been raised in the digital and stuff. I've had clients that were either my age or a little bit older, and even family members when they're like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I have some family members that I was trying to explain what it is I do. I run an agency and I do digital
Mhm.
marketing and try to explain SEO, and like they were nodding their heads and they're like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then later that night, he brings me a laptop and he's like, "Hey, I just got this laptop from work for the first time. Can you show me how it works?" And I'm like, "Oh, you didn't understand anything that I
Yes.
said, right?" Like,
Yes.
I opened up a spreadsheet and I was like, "Here's what you do." And he's like, "No, I'm never gonna use that." So,
Yep.
um, but so he goes from that extreme, which
Yeah.
I love him to death, and I tried to explain as much as I could, but it goes from that extreme to in the middle. I've had some coaching clients where, like, I wanna give the most I possibly can to them, and so I'm constantly, like, giving all, but then I realize halfway through the coaching session, it's going over their head.
Yes.
You can see it in their eyes. They're, like, overwhelmed with the amount of words that they don't understand that I just said. And then there's all the way down the other side where it's like, "Don't talk to me like I'm dumb. I've been doing this since I
Yeah.
was 4." So, like, how do you plan to go about helping train people
Yeah.
when there's all of the extremes so that you can make sure and address each of them in a proficient way?
Yeah. That's such a great question. And I relate to everything you said so much. It's so funny. So I think you can bucket those people primarily into like
Yeah.
certain tiers of like understanding. And I think by doing that, it'll be easier. So like for specific guides and segments, like definitions of terms. For example, we actually did create something that is a definition of terms that we're using
Hmm.
because we had a client that really just wanted to know um, to better understand when we're going over reporting what it meant. Is it good? Is it
Yeah.
bad? Why is this something I should look at? So we've had to that extreme, and then we've had people who have some understanding, or we also have people clients that come on board who think they understand what it is because they've done like they've been in the ad space really heavy or another space in digital really heavy. So they think they can just
Yeah.
translate that knowledge into email and SMS, which some of it does translate, like
Yep.
AOV and things like that, but some of it doesn't. There's so many factors and layers. So yeah, I think bucketing those people into tiers of understanding and then
Hmm.
having certain documents and just different items of education per bucket, I think is going to be really helpful. So from definitions to different strategies and like why we approach things in different ways. Now, a lot of our strategies are very custom. However, there's certain things that we see patterns,
Hmm.
like certain issues or challenges we might see across accounts that we can provide some insights on that might be helpful. So we'll kind of consider that. Like, what have we seen pattern wise? Um, Audits are pretty standard, so being able to like lay out what an audit should look like,
Hmm.
things like that. So I think those things will be really helpful and just like kind of bucketing those people into tiers of understanding, I think is the way we'll go about it.
Yeah, that's enlightening. Now, I'm thinking through this as you're talking about it, trying to figure out how I educate my clients as well. I mean, maybe we'll do like a self-select, like rank yourself on a 1 to
Yeah,
10 and then put them in a bucket. I have like an free SEO guide, and it's pretty basic in my mind, but I can see how it could be pretty overwhelming. It's, 20 to 30 pages of lots of stuff that somebody may have never heard, so I may need to slim it down and be a little more simple for some groups, and then be a little more in depth on the SEO and maybe the technical side for those who are further along. So I like that. I like that idea.
it varies depending on the person too. Like I've even had a client recently. We do reporting every week. And just sharing the numbers, there was lots of questions after that. So like you quickly learn, okay, they want to know what exactly is contributing to each of these numbers
Yeah.
in detail. Like what exactly was the campaign that did XYZ? So then to break it down further. And then there's cases like you mentioned where you kind of nerd out on the information and then you realize you've overwhelmed them and that's
Yep.
not what they want. So
Yep.
it's great to check in with them, let them do a self evaluation. That way they get exactly what they want out of that, as
Yeah.
well. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Okay, so education is a big part of 2024. What else are you working on?
Really putting ourselves out there, meeting more people, going to more events. Like we started talking to some people in the digital space. We went to Accelerate last year, which was really
Hmm.
cool and so bizarre because a lot of what we do is virtual. So being in person is just, I feel so awkward now.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
shell shock. So doing more of that in 2024, going to some more local events and then events, e-com events in different states and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so just excited to network a bit more this year.
Yeah, that's great. Um, so let's dive into a little bit of the tactical side of things.
Mhm.
So, whether it's what you do to promote your business, how you help your clients. Let's imagine we have a business owner watching this podcast right now or listening, and maybe they're to the point where they can't quite afford an in-house person, and they don't know the right questions to ask for to like hire the right agency. And there's also a million different agencies that can do a lot of different types of digital marketing, and you specialize in some. So, from an SMS and an email standpoint, let's talk through some tactics that they can do on their own, maybe like prior to hiring you or investigating and finding you as being the right fit for them. What can they do to elevate their presence online using email marketing and SMS marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first, as a business owner, it's good to know what it is that you need. It's hard to know that if you don't know a lot about what the channel will do for you. So,
Hmm.
for example, just understanding what email SMS offers you as a business owner. Your automations are going to offer passive income. So it's stuff it's income that works for you depending on triggers and behavior based on the contacts that come into your list.
Hmm.
Um, Knowing that your life cycle campaigns are to educate, build community, help convert, and whatever other pillars of your brand that you've laid out. Um, so recognizing whether you have a system set up. So if you don't have a system set up, then you know that you need to integrate email and SMS into your marketing calendar. So if you have a marketing
Hmm.
calendar for your ads, your SEO, or any other channels you're running, you want to integrate that so that it's cohesive across all channels. So the messaging's
Yeah.
cohesive, the campaigns, things like that. So then the next thing you're going to want to do is audit your account. Um, It's hard to do that if you don't know what you're looking for. However, something simple to look for is making sure things aren't broken. I know this is going to sound super simple, but you will not believe how much revenue you could be missing out on because a trigger isn't working right, because something in your system's working with a third party app that you're utilizing,
Yeah.
um, anything like that. Within that audit process, making sure something isn't broken, looking for anything that you don't already have set up. So if you have automation set up, do you have all of your foundational flows set up? What are foundational flows?
But yeah, let's talk about it. What are they?
So part of your foundational flows is your welcome flow. You
Okay.
can segment that to new or returning visitors to your site, however you want to segment that. Post purchase, you definitely want to segment that also as a first time
Mm-hmm.
purchaser, a repeat purchaser. Your browse abandon, that's when someone views a product and doesn't go any further. Your add
Mm-hmm.
to cart, that's when someone adds something to cart but doesn't make it to checkout. And then you want your
Mm-hmm.
checkout abandon, which is generally called abandoned cart. And
Mm-hmm.
that's based off of someone who made it all the way to checkout but didn't complete the order.
Okay.
You want a win back flow set up. That's a flow that helps address lapsed customers. A sunset flow is for people who are not engaging in your content, not necessarily based on purchasers or non-purchasers.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the ones that you want to look at first. Probably missing one. Um, but you want to make sure all of your foundational flows are set up and working properly, connected to everything properly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to make sure that your catalogs in your email service provider is up to date. Generally, when you connect an email service provider to your website, all of
Mm-hmm.
your products come through there so that you can create unique feeds that go into your emails, things
Okay.
like that.
Do you have a specific like service provider that you would recommend? Let's say I'm like a small business, a dentist or a chiropractor, and I don't have any of that set up right now. Do you have a
Mhm.
recommendation on where I would start that can take care of both, or do I have to have two different tools that do them separately? What are your recommendations there?
No, you don't need more than one tool. Generally, all
Okay.
your email service providers these days primarily have all the functions you need. I would say I'm not a huge fan of MailChimp, and I know so many people use it. But the way that they tier their, options of subscription isn't the best use of a business owner. You
Okay.
don't get a lot of functions. So I say that 'cause a lot of people use it and they don't realize there's other options out there. So there's Constant
Yeah.
Contact, there's Active Campaign. Both are really great options for service providers. Klaviyo is probably our favorite for e-com.
Hmm.
And that's just because of their data first, and you get so much data out of that platform, and it's so helpful. HubSpot for bigger enterprise companies,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic when you can link it to your website because of the amount of activity it tracks. It's
Yeah.
it's so good. And you get in the back end and you see all the things you're able to learn about all your contacts. So helpful when personalizing your strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Active Campaign and Constant Contact are great options for service providers, and Klaviyo is a really, really good option for ecom.
Okay. Okay, so let's say that we end up getting one of those. Let's do constant contact, let's just say.
Mhm.
And I'm a chiropractic office, and you're talking about these foundational campaigns that need to be set first. So I go and get that set up. How how does it work with like the you called it browser abandonment? So somebody
Mhm.
comes to the website and then leaves. How do I get that information so that I'm able to either message them through email or through text if it's just a browser abandonment?
Yeah, and you're talking about chiropractor office, so it's like a service provider.
Yeah.
We do active on site flows for
Okay.
that for service providers, particularly because there's not a product to view, right? So if we do
Yeah.
active on site, it kind of lets us know who's coming on the site. We can also like filter if they've clicked on anything or what page they ended on and things like that. So we might tailor the active on site flow to that. And
Okay.
once you link it, so in your settings, you're going to go to integrations and you're going to link it to whoever's hosting your website,
Mm-hmm.
WordPress, GoDaddy, whatever it is, and make sure the integration's set up, everything's good to go, and then it will bring over that API key into
Mm-hmm.
the ESP, so into the email service provider, so that you're
Okay.
able to set up those flows and things like that. And it will prompt you when you go to do the setup. It will
Mm-hmm.
say, "Hey, we're missing this API key. Hey, it hasn't tracked something," and then you know to go and search out how to fix that.
Okay, perfect. So there's the integration.
Mhm,
But now
integration.
I'm a customer. I go to that website, but can you get my information and text me or email me if I haven't put it into any form on that website? Or is it just the people who I've got that information from in the past?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's the people who've interacted in some kind of way in the past. So your email service providers are not, because of privacy policies and things like that, we're not capturing data. Now there
Yeah.
are third parties that people have used to do this, that basically track the email. They basically buy the access, and so they're able to track certain emails if they've opted into some other ecosystem somewhere. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise that, just because people
Mm.
know whether they've signed up for your list or not. And if they're getting any type of contact from you and they know they haven't signed up, it can be a really bad taste in their mouth, and you don't want to leave
Yeah.
that. So I highly suggest not using those third party
Mhm.
apps. And so this person's only going to be in your ecosystem if they've signed up on the footer before, if they've come in and they've given you their email, if this is chiropractor office and you've got their
Yeah.
a past customer, or they were referred to by somebody, then it would
Mhm.
track their information. You'd be able to reach out to them, and then it would be received much better as well
Yeah.
to that
Yeah,
person.
so then if you're a business owner out there and you don't have your current client information connected to one of these tools that can then deliver these campaigns to these customers when they come to your site, like a chiropractic office, you wouldn't have an abandoned cart most likely, right? Most
Exactly.
of them don't have products. But if I have a flow specifically about pregnancy chiropractic, right?
Yeah.
And somebody comes to that flow, you can immediately then trigger a campaign
Mhm.
around pregnancy chiropractic to them, right? And is that how that works?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and there's ways to do that too. Like, for example, for a chiropractor office, I'd have some type of pop up that asked, what are you coming for? Like, to be able to segment those people so that you can deliver
Mm,
them to the right content so that it's just most
mhm.
valuable for them.
Yeah, okay, I like that. So you have multiple different types of content, have a
Mhm.
pop-up, they select it, and then that's what campaign they would get.
Exactly. Right.
How do you decide when to send an SMS versus an email?
It's a good question. So basically for SMS, because it's much more, I say much more invasive, much more personal. We
Yeah.
typically, it depends on the brand. So, for example, if you have an ecom brand that releases products like once a month, you definitely want all the product releases, promotions, things like that through SMS
Mhm.
available. So obviously you have to have opt-in for SMS. There's a separate list and segment for that. Um, you can utilize SMS and strategies within flows really strategically. So for example, if you have abandoned cart flow and they didn't open the first email, 2 hours later,
Mhm.
you can check, make sure if they didn't open that email, send them an SMS if they've subscribed
Mm,
to SMS. So
okay.
strategically using it in the automations to make sure they get the information. That's important.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, for campaigns, I would say it's going to be the information that would be time sensitive, really important for like limited availability items or things like that. And it's really good to use for like a VIP treatment as well, like people who want to be the first to know about your brand's new releases, products, or information. It may
Mhm.
be a service provider that has really great content blogs, and they may want a notification every time a blog's launched. So things like
Yeah.
that as well.
What have you found to be the most effective way to capture someone's email and get them to opt into text?
Well, there's laws and rules around it.
Okay.
So for example, you need to have a separate step that specifically gives them the opportunity to clearly opt into SMS, and there's got to be straight guidelines underneath it and all of that. We've found that the two-step process in a data capture on a website does well. It doesn't
Mm,
deter people. So some people get kind of afraid of having a two-step process, but it doesn't deter people. If they want the extra validation of making sure they get that notification or an extra offer, they're going to sign up
yeah.
for it. Um, so yeah, I found that that has been the most successful. We don't like to like bribe people into SMS, just because you want people who genuinely want to be there and not just for that
Yeah.
one offer and then unsubscribe. It's not going to help you. So it really depends on like what the brand has to offer and like their primary like content pillars and things like that. But there's different ways to do it. But yeah, we found that the two steps opt in and the data capture works really well.
Okay. So I know with emails, if you're brand new using one of these new services and you're just starting out, I know that there's like a trust factor that has to build up, right?
Mhm.
Is that correct? So I know one of the strategies I've read in the past is try to get them to reply, right? And the more people that reply or the more you send over time, there's this authority. So that it's less likely that it'll go to their like spam
Mhm,
email,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Is there anything similar to that with SMS, or is it just pretty straight up? Like once they've opted in, you can send it out. Like I know there's not like a spam filter, but so that you don't get in trouble with some of these providers, is there a strategy that you attach to the SMS side?
No, thankfully, I mean, you just have to make sure you're validating your number that you're setting up in the
Mhm.
correct way. Other than setting up your SMS legally and appropriately and through the right steps and making sure you're compliant, like on your site and through your opt-ins, there's nothing else you have to do. So what you're referring to before is like warming the IP and the domain. So
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely has to be done whenever you're using any ESP, just because anytime you send like bulk email out, the domain is going to want things to be validated. You want a dedicated sending
Yeah.
domain set up, things like that. Yeah. And then when it's a new account, um, or if it's an older account and you set up a dedicated sending domain, you're basically starting over, rewarming that IP. So you're going to have to go through
Mm.
and send slowly and things like that to kind of like rebuild the trust with
Okay.
the server.
Tell me more about a dedicated sending domain.
Yeah. So a dedicated sending domain, especially is important now because of the new Google and Yahoo privacy policies that are being launched right now. You're basically Klaviyo, especially, and a lot of other email service providers are sending email notifications reminding people, "Hey, you're not compliant. Your messages are likely to go to spam." So what
Mhm.
it does is if you notice, not a lot of people notice this. When you get an email from a company, you'll notice the email that it's coming from, and it's gonna say, it's in the server section, and it's gonna say
Mhm.
like .clavio or .mailchimp. So when it says .company name is when you know that they have their dedicated sending domain set up. So
Okay.
it's important because it helps validate your presence in the internet world and with all of these
Mhm.
domains, and especially now the privacy policies changing and updating, that's
Mhm.
especially important to do. And there's a couple steps. It's basically updating your DNS records in the back
Okay.
end of your domain and your website. So wherever you're hosting
Mhm.
your website. And generally, each ESP is going to have a guide for you to do that.
Cool. Okay, and it's important for them to do that because if they don't do that and they get in trouble, that can jeopardize their main domain. Is that right?
It can flag their account, yes.
Okay.
Um, However, other things go into that. You generally won't get flagged unless you're like not abiding by a lot of other
Mm.
can spam laws and things like that. However, you're more likely to go in spam folder if you don't have that set up.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's just an extra step to take again, especially now because now it's being required so that you
Mm.
end up in the main inbox. So for sure.
Okay, that makes sense. What other tactical advice or strategies would you offer up to some of the listeners here?
Definitely set up some type of like metric to track, like set up some type of system to track your numbers. It's great to pull all your historical data too, so you can find your own baseline to where your email revenue is. Your email revenue should be 30% of your overall revenue. So
Okay.
that's definitely a metric you want to track by. Other than that, you want to continue to track recipient price per recipient for all your
Mhm.
subscribers. Um, it's easier to track your ROI when you're going to hire an agency as well, when you know what your baseline is. And if not, I mean, agency is going to be able to provide that for you too. Like they should have that set up because everybody wants to track the client success side of things. So
Mhm.
um, I would definitely say you want to pull all your historical data. You want this information somewhere. And we don't have an issue. Like we share all of this with our clients. So any data dashboards we have, like we'll give them access. They can copy it, keep it, whatever they want to do with it as well. So you definitely want access to anything that someone else is doing for you as far as that's concerned.
Okay. So where do you see the future going with SMS and email?
Yeah. Um, the AI is a big thing right now in all areas of digital. A lot of people I've seen say that AI can be used to just conduct all of the email program. It's not quite there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, what I do think AI is going to be super helpful with in the future for email specifically, I think what you're going to see next is a lot of automation. So, for example, Klaviyo already has some beta stuff out there. So, some of their beta stuff is they have an AI tool set up so that it creates segments for you based on data it finds, which is really cool.
Hmm.
So, basically, what it's going to do is help strategists' job. Like, it's just going to make your job easier, basically, make the
Yeah.
data more available to you because we spend a lot of time manually putting these reports together and still like finagling these reports to get the information we really need. So these
Hmm.
AI tools are going to be able to pull that together so that when we're doing these recaps of how things are going each month, like AI is going to pull this information. We're like, great, this is exactly what we need to do. I can see this very clearly. Here's the steps we need to take. I think
Yeah.
that's where AI is going to take us next, as opposed to
Okay.
taking over all of everything. I think it's just going to make your job much easier. It
Okay.
doesn't mean everyone's still gonna be able to do your job because you still need to know what the data means.
Yeah.
So, because there's so much talk going on about, what's still gonna exist after AI, becomes more prominent in every field and all of this stuff. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's what's next. And then the servers being able to handle more interactive functions of email. So
Hmm.
there's apps and ways to code your email so that you can like take a survey natively within the email or
Oh, cool.
purchase within the email itself and not be taken to the website. But
Oh,
not
yeah.
all domains will receive it. So you can't just not whenever you send that to everyone, not everyone's going to get the email the way you sent it right now. So I think in the future, that's going to develop a lot more.
Is that because the email provider that they have may just not accept it at that point?
Yeah, and maybe the way it's coded, whenever you're coding emails in HTML or you're just coding anything at all, there's no
Hmm.
guarantee that the receiving end of that has whatever it needs to get what you coded properly. Just like
Hmm.
websites and things like that, it's very similar in that sense.
Yeah.
It depends on like the server and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you recommend if I'm a business owner and I can't hire somebody yet just because of budget, and I get set up all of the tactics that you've talked about, I get set up. Do you recommend that I utilize AI to write the content and then humanize it, or is it good enough yet to do that? Or I know like there's different strategies and different aspects of digital marketing. What are your thoughts in your space?
So I find that using AI tools like ChatGPT for copy will only work in certain situations. So I think for like coaches or like realtors,
Hmm.
people like that or field like that, I feel like could do it, could use it for writing some of their emails out or coming up with
Okay.
some strategies and things like that. But they would still have to update and humanize it a bit, especially to their brand specific tone.
Hmm.
I don't find and feel that that's going to work for like e-com brands very well, just because there's so much different content, and then there's so much tailored content depending on the flows and the whatever the brand voice is for specific things. I mean,
Yeah.
um, I feel like if that were possible, then we wouldn't have as many people coming to us for help.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's
Yeah.
there
For
yet,
sure.
but maybe it will get there eventually. Maybe there's gonna be some type of third party app where it can like analyze your website and then come up with stuff for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's some beta stuff out there right now like that, but yeah, I don't think it's there quite yet.
Okay. Nice. Is there a specific like I don't know a lot about SMS and email in this regard. Do you do competitive analysis and see what other people are doing like you would with paid ads and SEO? And if so, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so there's limited research we can do on competitors other than signing up for their email list, doing research on their website, things like that. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain websites we can see like traffic and things like that. We do competitive analysis
Okay.
um, because we need to know mm, based on like overlapping audiences, like what's speaking to people, what's resonating, what's working, what's not
Mm-hmm.
working, things like that. So we can make sure that our strategy is completely optimized.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about A/B testing. Is that like a huge thing in your space?
Yeah, absolutely. So we once we get settled in an account, we start to plan A/B testing based on what we're seeing. So if we're seeing like a downtick in click through rate, we're going to A/B test certain design elements. You
Okay.
always want to A/B test one thing at a time, obviously, because you want to make sure you
Yeah.
know where the results are coming from. But yeah, we'll A/B test different messaging, design elements. We'll A/B test templates. Yeah, definitely a big thing. We do it in automations and we do it in lifecycle campaigns. We do it in
Nice.
opt-ins. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So you brought up a point that I've thought about quite a bit with design. So I get some emails that are super designed, some emails that are just words. Do you find that some work better than others? Does it depend on the industry? Like, how come I get some that are just words and some that are beautiful?
Yeah, it does depend on the industry, and it depends on, like, what you're like, why you're getting a particular email. So, for example, we had a client, that sold car keys,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the flows that we did for this client were primarily designed. However, in the workflows, we A/B tested we A/B tested text versus design in all areas.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically in the flows, in one particular flow, the text base outperformed the others, and it was because it was much more
Hmm.
personal. It was like it
Yeah.
was the welcome flow. It was the first email they were getting, and
Yeah.
that audience in particular responded very well to that style email. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I find that it definitely depends on the industry, depends on the reason why you're getting the email, but it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely something to A/B test still.
Yeah. It seems if it's words, it's less corporate-y, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Like I get it if you have products like Nike and you're showing off the next shoe and trying to like get that, but for an email like that, it makes sense just to come through with words or minimal design.
Yeah.
Great. Man, you really know your stuff. Like I'm trying to think of questions that might stump you and I just can't think of any.
Well, it's been fun. I love getting in the nitty-gritty of all of it just because, it's funny because I don't did you do the Clubhouse thing whenever Clubhouse got big?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Clubhouse was something that came out, well, I got into it in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so interesting because Clubhouse, I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's a voice-based social media platform. So,
Hmm.
and at the time, it's changed a lot now, but it was like a live interaction. So you get on and you can join rooms, kind of like chat rooms, but it's all voice
Mm-hmm.
driven. And my business partner and I would do it, and we would like meet other marketing professionals, and it was so fun because like before you're in your silo, and like right now, I mean, everyone's in their silo, everyone's in their business, everyone's working,
Yeah.
and the marketing industry is so funny because some people are very open about like how they do work and like what they're doing and how they're doing it. And some people gatekeep a lot of stuff and feel really weird about
Yeah.
sharing information or how they share
Mm-hmm.
it. And so in this environment, in this clubhouse environment, it's just like, I don't know, it's voice. It's not anything you can show. It's literally
Yeah.
what you say. So we would get on these panels, and before working in your silo, sometimes you doubt yourself or you compare yourself to another company or what everyone else is
Mm-hmm.
doing. And you're like, man, that's a good idea. Or like, I wonder if we're doing this right or whatever. Well, we get in a clubhouse and we get on these panels with some of these people that we've been following and like super excited and all.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like, what you realize what people actually know because these are live questions. Business owners are coming into these rooms and they're asking questions at
Hmm.
the panel, and you really see what people like if they're doing what they're preaching, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I say that because I learned so much during that period, and it's
Mm-hmm.
taught me a lot about like experience and research and the details. And I
Yeah.
love that about working with different clients because I love the challenge of all these situations being so unique. They're in different places in their business, they're dealing with different
Yeah.
issues. Every organization's set up differently, and
Mm-hmm.
you're only one piece of it. So, like, when you come into this, you've got to realize, okay, what's everyone else doing? How do I fit into this? And how do I make this work for the team? And it's
Yeah.
teaches you so much. So that's like my favorite part about what I do.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you do that. And I'm glad that you've niched down to those specific things because it's an area where I feel like a lot of agencies, it's kind of like in addition to, like,
Yeah.
we'll help you with all this other stuff. And also, if you want this, we'll kind of like throw somebody on it. But like, you are the expert in this area. If
Yeah.
somebody comes to you, those two things are going to be well taken care of.
Yes. Yes. We love it. We love it. Cause again, it's like a mix of everything that we love about marketing, which is super cool. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, congratulations on all of your success. I appreciate you taking the time today
Yeah.
and enlightening us with all of your fantastic answers. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to go and implement a bunch in my business. So I appreciate that. At the end of every podcast, I ask two different questions. And so the first question is, if you could go back and give yourself advice in the past as a younger person, what would that advice be?
I would say to have the confidence. So
Mm.
to try to put aside the self-doubt and believe in what you know you can do.
Mhm.
Because again, like throughout my career experience, it's something I've learned. I could have been way more confident in my ability and what I was executing if I would have known what I know now.
Uh-huh.
And, like you said, granted, hindsight's 2020, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, just to be okay with like being confident in what I know. Like
Mhm.
whatever you're doing, experiencing, learning, mm, go with that.
Okay. So I have another question, but I want to add one in between this. So imagine that you are 80 years old and you're looking back at yourself now. What advice would you give yourself after living a full life right now?
Oh my gosh, much different advice. I think it would be, um, probably, like, nothing matters, like, so opposite, right? Because I mean, like, I feel like we just stress about so many things that are so trivial, and it's like, whatever's gonna
Uh-huh.
happen is gonna happen, you do the best you can, and I have to remind myself of that all the time, and just caring about, like, what someone else is doing. It's so funny because, like, whatever people in the normal world talk about how social media is, when you own a business and you're in the digital space, it feels exactly the same way. Like, you
Mhm.
just feel like there's pressure to meet certain standards and like you have to present yourself and sell yourself and do all this stuff. And it's like, you do. I mean, there's a lot to that and owning a business and getting clients and
Mhm.
making a livelihood, but it's also okay to just stay true to yourself and not go outside of that to meet those standards, to execute those things. Like
Yeah.
still stay true to yourself and like what you're doing is okay. Like that's okay to do.
Yeah, most of the stuff we worry about never happens anyway. I know there's some
Right?
stat that says that, and so that's good advice. I like that. Okay, so last question: what leaders, books, or podcasts inspire you right now?
So I thought about this question before and it sounds uh trivial because for a long time I was really obsessed with all of the professionals and the Gary V's and all of this stuff, and I, like,
Mm-hmm.
saturated myself in it so much that I'm very burnt out on it all. So,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, what inspires me these days is just seeing other people who I love working with do well. And like every time they have a success story for a client or something else that's happened in their business, that is so inspiring to me because I just feel like it feels like a win for me and for us
Yeah.
when we see other people that we know doing well. That is super inspiring to me. So just being connected and seeing other people win or share their experiences. Outside of that, I spend a lot of time trying to kind of disconnect, not
Mm.
necessarily like do more and like absorb all the
Yeah.
information because there's so much information to absorb. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to know who to listen to and who's legit and who's not. So I've found that sticking to staying educated in what I do in my profession and what's going on in my space and staying on top of all the things that are happening,
Mm-hmm.
utmost importance. Outside of that, I've been focusing on disconnecting so that I can be creative and innovative in the
Mm-hmm.
strategy side of things. So I like reading like fantasy books and listening to true crime
Yeah.
podcasts and things outside of it to kind of like decompress.
Good for you. It's a hard skill to disconnect.
Mhm.
It really is, and for a lot of us who've been in the workforce for quite some time, it's we're so used to doing it for so many years that when you finally realize, okay, it's time to change and pivot and disconnect, it takes some mental effort. So I applaud you for doing that. Brittany, how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Brittney Trahan. Our website is strategymavenagency.com. We're on Instagram at Strategy Maven. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, all sorts of good places. I appreciate you for being on here. Really, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for jumping on and educating us and being a part of this awesome podcast.
Yeah, it was so fun. Thanks for having me, Eli. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks to all you listeners who are out there. Appreciate you jumping on, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.